call the meeting order. This is the Plan Commission meeting of Tuesday, October 27, 2015. Roll call.
Dickman here.
Johnston here.
Carrillo here.
Scafidi here.
Kuzikowski here. Corral here.
Chandler here.
Welcome to the new building. This is the first official public meeting in this new building. Hope you can see and enjoy what hopefully is a long and great history for this building. I think it's a tremendous achievement, and it's something that I look forward to working in. So, welcome to everybody that's here tonight. All right, first item or second item on the agenda is, and it says minutes of the October 13, 2015 meeting, but it says to be reviewed at November 10th meeting. So, Carrie, you want to tell me what that's about?
Didn't you listen to the instructions you gave?
There we go, got it. There was a delay due to the move, so we are going to postpone the review of the minutes until the next meeting,
Sounds good. So we'll move to significant common council actions, of which there are none.
of which there are none.
All right, so that closes item 3 out. Item 4 under new business, we have, so did you purposely list it that way?
No, it was a typo.
Okay, so it should be
4A.
4A is certified survey map review submitted by Norm Thine, Apple Tower Development, Inc. for the properties at 8380, 8400, 8432 South 27th Street, tax key numbers as listed. Carrie.
So we are talking about a CSM for the properties as Mr. Mayor has just delineated. For those in the audience, you will see those properties that are hatched in red as being the properties we are discussing. The CSM is to reconfigure those lots. Lot 1 will be reconfigured to accommodate the proposed Villa Healthcare nursing facility. Lots 2 and 3 will be future development sites. You will notice in your packets that there are a couple of items for conditions, a couple of technical corrections that would need to be made. Wetlands will be shown on the lot for the Villa Healthcare facility, which is lot 1. Lots 2 and 3 would be postponed for their wetland delineation at such time as they become up for development. So there's a little bit of a change to condition 3 just to clarify, that lots 2 and 3 would be completed prior to those developments. Also, the street pattern for South Orchard Way would be required on lot 3 prior to recording. And there was a note from the finance department that special assessments are to be paid prior to recording. The staff recommendation is that the Plan Commission recommends to the Common Council that the certified survey map for the properties at 8380, 8400, 8432 South 27th Street be approved with conditions 1 through 4. Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Carrie. So questions or comments from the commission? Mr. Dickman.
I want to make sure I'm okay. On that lot 3, where we're going to have the road Orchard Way going through there, how much of a reduction in width do we have? Is that going to screw up the development of that lot ultimately?
Just leave it on, Carrie.
Just talk loud.
Just talk loud, right? I don't know why it's not working. Hang on.
Microphones do not work in Oak Creek, apparently.
Yeah, it's just like the old ones.
We should feel at home.
Just talk.
Okay, well, lot 3 has over 3 acres, so the road has always been proposed in that area. This is, whatever they propose on lot 3 would have to accommodate the road.
Okay, okay.
So we're not vacating the road.
No.
Other questions or comments?
I guess
Go ahead. If you're not done, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Oh, I didn't see Commissioner Johnson. Oh, there you go. Okay.
You're up. I just suggest that we'd have the wetlands shown on all the properties, on all lots. We've had such an issue with wetlands lately that we really need to show those on the properties. Would be my comment.
So you are saying you oppose the amendment for, that's as proposed?
Yes.
Okay. And what's the issues that you're raising?
We've had One in particular lately that we're dealing with, there was an idea that there were wetlands on the property. When they actually went to develop it, they found out there's a lot more wetlands on the property. And it's costing a lot of money to make those changes due to the wetlands not being shown on that CSM.
Okay, so Carrie, since I don't know this is probably as well as I should, the wetland delineation on Lot 1 is completed?
The information that is on the CSM is that the wetland was delineated on parcel 1 on January 20th, 2015.
Okay,
That is proposed to be shown on this CSM prior to recording. However, the lots 2 and 3 did not have a delineation conducted prior to the end of the delineation season, so I was told tonight that the delineation cannot be completed until next spring. Hence the request for the CSM to be revised at such time that wetlands are delineated, and if they are discovered, either have an affidavit of correction or a new CSM submitted at that time.
which seems like a reasonable request. If we can't delineate them this fall, why would I hold it up for that amendment? Okay, other questions or comments? Go ahead.
I guess my question back to Commissioner Johnson is, what is the danger with nothing really proposed for those two? Is there a bigger concern? I mean, I understand your point for these other ones, but with nothing proposed there yet, I guess I don't see the issue.
Just an issue if the property does get sold, it's still up to the buyer to.
It's more on them, correct?
To do their due diligence, but we have an opportunity, we have an ordinance that states that it should be shown on the CSMs. It should be there.
Thank you.
You're lit up, do you want, no? Mr. Dickman. Then Alderman after you.
This really, it doesn't have anything to do with the material on the CSM, but it's a question for Doug. On the CSM at the end, Steve signs it as chairman, and you sign it as corresponding secretary, City of Oak Creek. I've never seen that term before. I wonder if you could just tell me what that means.
This one works. Sure. I mean, that's actually been on every CSM that's
Just
been,
haven't noticed it, though.
yeah.
Well, what does it mean?
I technically am the corresponding secretary for the Plan Commission. It's just something that's gone back. The Plan Commission has designated a recording secretary or corresponding secretary, and that's always been me, so.
Okay. It basically means recording secretary, the same, kind of the same words.
Right, I mean, it's just an official, someone acting officially on behalf of the Plan Commission.
Okay.
And relaying their, not verdict, but their decisions to, with respect to the land division.
Okay, thank you.
Alderman Bekavich.
I did have some citizens that had some input into this. They were a little worried, they were more worried about what was gonna happen with lots 2 and 3. Particularly, I would think they were the homes on Cortland. Again, that's still up to the developer. Again, I wouldn't wanna hold this up over this wetland issue on 2 and 3, cause we debated lot 1 back in January. If I remember right, there was a lot of wetlands. There's like 2 ponds on here and maybe a wetlands area in the end when the development goes in. One on the north side, one on the south. I don't have a problem with that. Again, I'd like to see 2 and 3 done prior to development. I get that. I guess more importantly, I'd like to make sure lot 1 is cleared of all due tax assessments that are due to it going forward, seeing as this was all one parcel under the prior owner. So there may be some outstanding tax bills on that property.
The deferred assessment would apply to the property prior to the CSM.
On both lots 1, 2, and 3.
It's just one, well, whatever property the assessment is assigned to, that's what would have to be paid prior to the recording of the CSM.
But wasn't this all one property before?
No,
we
it's
split
currently
it?
3 properties.
It
It's just
currently is, but prior.
It's currently, and the CSM is only reconfiguring those 3 lots.
Okay. Otherwise, I don't see a need to really hold them up over that correction on 2 and 3.
Okay. Commissioner Dickman, did you want to speak?
Oh, I'm sorry, didn't turn, sorry.
Other questions or comments?
Wait, it won't turn off now.
Seeing none, someone might want to make a motion on 5A, or 4A rather?
Bekavich will make a motion that the Plan Commission recommend to the Common Council that the certified survey map for the properties at 8380, 8400, and 8432 South 27th Street be approved with the following conditions. 1, that all technical corrections are made prior to recording. 2, that the officially mapped street pattern for South Orchard Way is depicted on the map prior to recording.
If I could interrupt, I apologize. I want to just clarify that for condition 2, it would be South Orchard Way on Lot 3.
Okay. That the officially mapped street pattern for South Orchard Way on Lot 3 is depicted on the map prior to the recording. That a wetland delineation be completed on the entire property by Wisconsin DNR approved professional prior to the developments of Lot 2 and 3.
If I could interrupt here and kind of help you out with the
Sure.
clarification for this one too. That a wetland delineation for lots 2 and 3 be completed by a Wisconsin DNR approved professional prior to development of lots 2 and 3. Should the survey indicate the presence of wetlands, a new CSM or affidavit of correction shall be submitted to the city of Oak Creek. Lot 1 shall show wetlands on the CSM prior to recording.
As stated? How's that?
It's
And,
good.
and 4, that all deferred special assessments are paid in full prior to recording on all lots. Although that's been explained. Done?
Okay, Dickman seconds.
Roll call.
To Dickman, aye.
Johnston, no.
Grillo, aye.
Bekavich, aye.
Speedy, aye.
Guzekowski, aye.
Curl, no.
Chandler, aye.
Let Mr. Thine know that that went through for him. Have a good night. All right, so we're going to move to 4B.
4B is a presentation on the Lake Vista Park. If anybody cannot see the presentation where you're sitting, I invite you to come and sit in the audience. But it looks like you all have,
If he shows it on our laptop, we'll be able to see it.
all right, can you?
If you don't have a laptop, you have to share one for now.
Are you all seeing
I
the
see it.
project overview? Awesome.
And we can all turn our mics off for now.
My mic is on. Okay. Come on, now if my laptop will work. There we go. What we're looking at right now is the overall development plan for Lake Vista Park. For those of you who aren't aware of what the development is that we're looking at here, this is over on the lakefront. So this is part of the redevelopment of that area. We have over 30 acres that we're redeveloping, part of which is split into an upland park and trails down to what we're calling an adventure playground area, and trails down the bluff to access the beach area. What we're going to be looking at are 90% construction plans. The overall development plan shows that there are 2 parking areas for the upland playground and recreation fields. There are 31 stalls, parking stalls, with 2 ADA compliant stalls that are right above the upland pavilion and playground area, and an additional 90 stalls that are right by the rec fields to the north. There are ADA ramps at the crosswalks through the parking lots that have access to the different areas. And then if there are no questions on the overall development plan, we'll just start going into the details. The first area that we're going to talk about is the upland pavilion. This is going to be the main pavilion for the park area. So what you have in the packets that I handed out and also on the screen, this is the concept for the main building. So these plans were put together by Rinkechung Architecture, the conceptual renderings for you. Perhaps I should take a step back and say that back in January, we formed a Lake Vista Design Committee, which is an ad hoc committee that included some members of the Planning Commission, also the Park and Rec Committee. We had citizen representatives and a member of the CDA. I think there were 8 in total. I'm getting feedback. Is anybody else getting that? Okay. Throughout the planning process, these plans were reviewed and vetted by that design committee, and these are the results of their hard work, and I'd like to thank them for all the dedicated work that they put into the roughly 8 months of planning and meetings that we had. Part of the Upland Pavilion will include an outdoor seating area, which is the slide that you see right before you now. This is going to have just 2 areas that are off of the building itself. So actually, if I go back to the other slide, you'll see that it looks to be 4 areas or 3 or 4 areas where people are going in and out of the building. Those will actually be bifold glass garage doors that allow the interior to flow out to the patio area. So if you have a nice day and your event allows for it, then you can actually have your interior space extend out to your exterior space, which is also enhanced by this outdoor seating area, which is kind of separated slightly by a low seating wall. And there are some areas where you could have outdoor furniture. They also have, we'll see later on that they are calling for possibly even an outdoor gas fireplace. The seating area kind of is an L shape that goes underneath a pergola that comes out from the building and kind of wraps around to this other area. So there are effectively 2 seating areas that are kind of separated from each other. This is actually the southern view of the building. It's showing the exterior public restrooms. These are single stalls. There are interior bathrooms that are only accessible through the interior bathroom. So you can actually have an event going on that would not be interrupted by public restroom use. These elevations just give you an idea of what the building materials would be. They are trying to pick some materials that are easy to not only clean, but to maintain. So we have some steel, we have a wood trellis. The upper part of the building is also, the cantilever part is kind of treated wood decking. This is the west elevation, so this is as you're coming into the park area, this is what you would see as you're on the road. This is kind of the back of house area, if you will. This includes the office storage area and the back of the main event space. This is the north elevation as you would see it coming in from the parking lot area. That wall that's in front there is actually kind of acting as a vestibule almost before you get into the building itself. And then you can see just kind of how that area would extend from the interior of the building into the exterior seating area. This is just showing you what the layout of the interior of the building as well as the outdoor seating area would be. So we have an event space that is approximately 970 square feet. The kitchen is a warming kitchen. It's shown at about 275 square feet with a low bar area that can be closed off so that if you have an event space or an event going on in the general space, it would not be disturbed by the kitchen activities. Also, the restrooms are separated from the rest of the event space. And then you can see how there's that extra office storage space and then the mechanical and the exterior restrooms that are separated for the remainder. That is the intention, that it would be rentable.
And who run through what department has that been?
It would be run through Park and Rec.
Thank you.
Similar to how the other pavilions and the other parks are handled, yes. Recently, we were given a couple of materials palettes to kind of give you an idea of the interior and exterior materials for the building. They're talking about concrete floors and some other elements. If you have any questions about these, we can certainly discuss those, but I just wanted to give you an idea of what they're proposing. Yes?
On these materials, are they pretty compatible with what we require in our documents for businesses and
Yeah, the materials are maybe not masonry, but there is quite a bit of glass. They're talking about different kinds of, well, they have this board form concrete, which I believe is actually listed, although maybe not in those exact terms, but I believe that's listed in the approved building materials. These are what all come back to the Plan Commission for review at site and architectural plan review. At this time, this is just a presentation to let you know what's going on. We're not asking for any decision by the Plan Commission tonight. Sure. I don't have audio on. I'm getting it too. We good? We'll see. Yeah. So basically, these are the material palettes that are proposed for the entire building, interior and exterior. Fixtures, we're looking at durable materials with kind of the same kind of fixtures that we would have in the other restroom facilities and the other park pavilions, things that are going to be vandal-proof or at least vandal-resistant, things that can be easily maintained and, if necessary, easily replaced. These are interior proposed fixtures for the kitchen area. Nothing has been set in stone yet. This is just some suggestions for what could be included there. Now, the outdoor elements are something that are in flux, but again, there's this outdoor gas fireplace. Now, I know that some people had a question about that, and how I believe it would work is the canisters that have the gas would actually be, and this is an idea, installed by the planning, or not the planning, the rec department, park and rec department, at the time that an event is booked, or soon. I'm getting the feedback now too. So that we wouldn't have anybody have access, the public have access to that fireplace. It would be something that would be controlled by us in order to make sure that that fireplace is used properly. Once the canister is gone, that's it. That's one of the ways that we were thinking about programming that. If we move on to the main playground area, this is just immediately south of the Upland Pavilion. This is actually separated into 3 areas. The first area is for the 2 to 5-year-olds. The second area is for the 5 to 12-year-old. And then the third area is what we're calling a mixed age group, because there are 3 main components that could be used by different ages that aren't really specific. So you'll notice that there are bike racks. There's a main bike rack on the west side of the playground. That's mostly where we're going to have them. There are a couple of bike racks that are scattered throughout the park. Benches, trash cans, those kinds of things are also included throughout. So the first playground area is the 2 to 5-year-old. And this is something that went through extensive discussions with the design committee. So what you have here are toddler bucket swings, something called chatter noodles, where you can stand on one side and then your friend can stand on the other and you can talk to each other. The Wevos 3 Arch, which is a climbing structure. What are called swiggle sticks, which kind of look like the stepping stones that are on the bottom. Then there's the climber, which is that circular thing that the kid's hanging upside down on, a slide, and something called the Cozy Dome. Now, this is something that we had talked about. It originated from what we were calling a hobbit house. So this is something that the kids can climb on and under and be safe and still be within view and still have that kind of enclosed play element, kind of like a little house. The rock structure is another climbing structure that kind of brings the natural element into the traditional playground. And then we added a musical component. There's 2 musical components on the playground itself. One is in the 2 to 5-year-old. This is the xylophone. And then there's another musical element in the 5 to 12-year-old. We thought that was an interesting thing. That's not something that we have anywhere in the rest of the parks. In fact, a lot of these elements are completely unique to Oak Creek. We don't have a lot of these elements in any of the other parks. For the 5 to 12-year-old, yes? We'll actually get into that in another slide. Yep. For the 5 to 12-year-old age group, we have a lot of climbing structures. So there's the Trekker ladder, there's a slide, there's a crescent climber, there's an O-zone climber, a helix neck climber. It's all these kind of weird configurations that kids can just go and climb to their heart's content. So if you can't really tell one element from the other, it's kind of designed that way. It's a net that kind of goes over and throughout. So, so that was something that we wanted in this area. Also, there's the, what they call the Omni-Spin. So instead of having the traditional merry-go-round, you can have kids that actually sit in something, be a little bit more secure, and still have the fun element of sitting till they puke. This is the second area where we have the musical element, and this is what we have what are called contrabass, or contrabass really, chimes. So there are going to be 5 chimes with 2 mallets. Kids can just go and bang on it, and you'll actually have a harmonization between the chimes in this area and the xylophone in the other area, so you're not getting dissonance. You're actually getting something that'll work together. And then we also had another swing, and this is kind of like get all your friends on the swing and swing together. The mixed age group playground element has something that we were really excited about. One is the zip line. The zip line is elevated at one end, actually elevated at both ends, so that the kids can just climb up on the platform and zoom to one end and not have to worry about having to jump off and kind of pull to the other end. The component that they sit on is actually a disc. So they did actually have a chair for completely disabled kids to sit in, but since we don't have a parallel, it would be really difficult to keep that as just a standard thing, and we wouldn't have anybody that would be able to switch it in and out. So this disc platform still allows people who can sit and hold on to enjoy the zip line. And it's kind of a wrapped steel cable, so it's very strong. I asked how many, what the maximum weight limit is for this. They don't really have a maximum weight limit, but it can hold several hundred pounds is what I've been told. Then there's a climbing structure. It's called a Mobius. It has different kind of undulating areas, kind of like a rock climbing wall almost. And then the photo on the bottom left, those archways, those will be in between, as it shows here, kind of 2 mounds. So kids could climb on, over, under. It's kind of like having a tunnel that you just have free play on. Now, while you were asking about the fall zones, each area has had their different fall zones delineated, and we have different materials that we're proposing. There's going to be a rubberized surface. Anywhere that you see the kind of pattern, the swirly patterns, that's rubber. Then there is one area that will be sand, and that's the rock climbing structure. The zip line will start with rubberized surface on the west end, and then it's mulch underneath that, although it's not really clear here. That's a mulch kind of surface. There's also mulch underneath the, on the far east side of the 5 to 12-year-old playground. Oops. This is a rendering, although flat, because that'll show you how the playground is going to be laid out. It won't look exactly like this. There will be some topography element to it, so just keep that in mind, but this is kind of how we're thinking the playground would look. Are there any questions before I move on? Next area is the sail shelters and the earth forms. Now, when we say earth forms, we wanted to have more of a topographical element. So this was an area just south of the playground that could kind of flow into more of a natural play area, as well as having some light shelter picnic areas. Nothing real heavy, no buildings or anything like that. These are kind of like a canvas shade just to get you out of the elements for a little bit. There's going to be kind of a natural drainage feature that goes through that will be kind of a dry stream bed, but it will provide some stormwater management when necessary, when there's rain and that kind of thing, but mostly it's going to be a dry stream bed. But these will be where the topographical hills are. So this will give you kind of a little bit better idea of what we're talking about. Now, whenever we were discussing this with the consultants, they were talking about these little rooms. The earth forms or the mounds would kind of create a separate area that would be flat and lower than the hills to kind of wall off the different places where people could go and gather separately from others. And I should mention also that connecting all of these areas is an integrated trail system. We just lost the picture. Yep. So you can go on the multi-purpose trail, which is a bike and a hiking trail. You can go around all of the elements of every part of the park. There are different widths and different materials for the trails, as we'll get into. Are we back? We're back. Awesome. Now the shade structures have not been completely finalized yet, so these are just concepts of what the sail structure could look like. Basically, it's kind of a canvas tether that would provide some shade in those areas. Next area we're going to be looking at are the bird blinds, which, if we're moving from west to east, is just to the east of the, actually and south of the earth form area that we were talking about. There are two areas for the bird blinds. This is actually, Bender Park and this area are actually migratory bird paths. So we've been told that this is actually a very active birding area. And we presented to the South Shore Chamber and to the South Shore cities recently, and they were very excited to hear that we were proposing these bird blinds because of the active birding activity that until we did this park project we were slightly unaware of. So the two bird blinds are slightly different. One is going to be elevated on a deck, and that's the first one. That's immediately south of the shade sail structures. And then the one that almost looks like an eyelash to the east of that, that is going to be kind of the flat one at grade. So that'll be kind of the concept rendering that's on the very bottom of this slide. They will have seating areas for each of these, and there is a bike rack that is in between the shade sails and the first bird blind structure. Going up to the northeast portion of the park, we are going to look at what is proposed to be a beacon overlook area. Low seating wall in a circular pattern. This is ADA accessible from the parking lot crossing the road. They're proposing to have pavers and then the concrete trail that would lead down to the vehicular overlook that we're going to talk about next. The beacon is still a work in progress. This is the latest drawing of what the beacon could possibly look like. This is showing over 24 feet. No, this is not meant to be something that could be climbed into. Oops. This is simply supposed to be kind of a tower structure. You can see the lake just at grade. This is an overlook area, so this is actually right at the bluff. You'll be looking down down and out at the lake. Yeah, this wasn't intended to be an observation tower, but I'll let them know your suggestion. Okay. There was proposed to be a light, not to be a functioning, like, navigational tool, but just something to bring your attention there, yeah. And like I said, this is still a work in progress, so this is the latest drawing that I have. This was an early concept of what the beacon could be. They were even talking about having interactive elements on it that would possibly have something to do with navigation or even astronomical navigation in it. Maybe a musical element. There were a lot of ideas. Next, we're going to talk about the vehicular pull-off. Now, this is, I'm getting a lot of feedback now. This is the main overlook area. This is the part where we think that the most of the vistas are going to be drawing people. Sorry. Okay, so there's a seating wall with terrace planters. There are permeable pavers for people to actually walk in between the pavers, or in between the planters. There's an ADA ramp that allows you to go from the top terrace down to the bottom terrace, and then the access to the bluff trail. Benches throughout. There's about 30 parking stalls to allow people to kind of pull off the main drive, park, take a look at the lake, get out, access the trails, or just kind of have a nice area to just sit on the wall, look out over the lake. The path, there's two paths. One is the main bluff trail, which is 12 feet wide and is concrete, and then there's an 8-foot trail that accesses that bluff trail immediately from one of the terraced areas. The bluff trail takes you further down to a couple of bluff areas, if you will. Next, we're going to talk about the Nature and Adventure Playground. Now, the trail is accessed off of the road to get to this area. This is our community input, community participation area. What will be put in are the trails accessing these different areas, and the wetland is going to be part of the overall stormwater management plan for the area. Several different materials are going to be used for the trail. Now, they are all supposed to be ADA accessible to various degrees. The concrete trail will be accessible to anybody. And then the mowed and the mulch trails will just be, will still be ADA accessible, just not as much as a concrete path would be. Within the concrete are going to be some whimsical things. They are going to put different stamps in certain areas to kind of get kids' attention and draw them to the nature that surrounds them. So you will have, for instance, duck prints, you'll have fox and raccoon prints, bear, owl, turtle, and there is one element that they have here that's a Native American footprint that may change to just another animal footprint. There will be signage along with the different playground areas, including the upland playground area, to kind of direct people to where they're going. The next two areas that we're going to talk about are the smaller bluff shelters. These are meant to complement the upland shelter but be smaller and open air in concept. They can accommodate, they set up to about 30 people. That might be a bit on the high side. But again, these are all open concept. The bluff trail goes down to the shelter. It allows for ADA access on the back. This is just kind of giving you a rendering, an idea of what the shelter would look like. This is facing out so that you would still have the lake view. Same kind of building materials and palette as the upland pavilion. There are two of these. One is on the southern part of the bluff trail, and then the other one is just south of the overlook. Same kind of outdoor fireplace that was proposed in the upland pavilion outdoor seating area. Just some ideas for outdoor furniture if we decide to put that in there. Next, we're going to talk about the wood deck overlook. This is another area that was just maximized for its views. As you're going down the trail, there will be a switchback, and at the end, at one of those switchback nodes will be a wood deck where you can just sit and have another nice view of the lake that might be a little bit off from the vehicular pull-off and not quite down to the bluff yet.
Carrie,
Yes.
how do we, well, I guess we can't ensure, but how do we make it less likely that someone would just pitch those over the railing of the?
It's a good question. The proposed furniture that are shown here have brackets so that you can actually attach them to the ground.
All right, thanks.
Yep. In fact, this is the proposed furniture for the deck that they have in their plans. All of these furniture items do have brackets so that you can secure them. These particular ones are recycled materials, yes. And their suggestions. We have not had any conversations about exactly what the furnishings would be. This is the last slide for tonight. These are miscellaneous park elements that we didn't get to that are throughout the area. The hands are actually bike racks. So there are several bike racks that are scattered throughout the park area and along the trails. The Lake Vista Park main monument sign doesn't actually incorporate the Lake Vista logo, but it will. This is just a concept rendering of what it could look like. This main monument sign is proposed to be at the entrance to the park by the Upland Pavilion right before you get to the parking lot. The lighted bollards are on the right-hand side. Those are going to be scattered throughout to have low-level pedestrian lighting. The center shows the different types of signage that are proposed throughout the park, wayfinding signs, certain park elements that are going to be highlighted, and then the lowest type of signage is for information purposes to kind of highlight certain areas for more information. So for instance, if you're in the nature playground, it might highlight a certain type of animal and different things about that animal, for instance. Almost like whenever you go through the zoo and you get the different different kind of factoids on the signage. The bottom shows 3 different types of benches that are scattered throughout the park. There are traditional wooden benches with backs, backless wooden benches, and then seating areas that are stone. So kind of like what we have out in the I don't know if you can see them, but that way. There are stones that you can sit on. And then finally, just the idea of what type of trash receptacles that are going to be placed throughout the park.
Thank you for that look at the overview of the park. Any questions for Carrie or comments?
If anybody wants to see the more in-depth 90% construction drawings, I have a copy. Some of them are highlighted here, but I have one copy that's several pages long if anybody's interested in the engineering of them. These will be presented to the council, and the hope is for the bid to be placed in around Thanksgiving.
Okay, thank you for that. Motion to adjourn.
Carrillo moves to adjourn at 6:44.
Roll call.
On here. Dickman, aye.
Johnston, aye.
Carrillo, aye.
Speedy, aye.
Guzekowski, aye. Corral, aye.
Chandler, aye.
Thanks for being here. We will see you next Tuesday. Have a good night.